MMC is a really broad organisation. We operate in many different markets globally, but also our kind of lines of business are really varied. And with that come challenges in trying to adopt a standardised approach, which we try to do kind of generally, I think, in a number of the talks we've had over the last few days at this conference. One of the common themes is how can we be consistent, how can we streamline our approach, because typically we have centralised legal and privacy functions, and in order to provide that support we want to come up with common standards, and website compliance and cookie compliance specifically is no different. So from MMC's perspective, we worked really hard in the last few years to develop, in collaboration with various other stakeholders, and I'll go into a bit more detail about that later, a public-facing website and application compliance standard. By public-facing, I mean what do we do with respect to MMC's public websites rather than it's published for the public. And also a separate kind of cookie compliance guide to, again, provide a little bit more colour about the specific risks associated with different categories of cookies and other tracking technologies. Again, critically, there's often this misconception that we're talking just about cookies, and of course, actually, the range of tracking technologies is already broad, and as Fidelma alluded to, is only getting broader as technology continues to evolve. So absolutely, I think we have worked hard to adopt a common standard, but we are guided in a very iterative and live way by enforcement action and what we're seeing in different jurisdictions, because I think despite having the rules in place for a number of years now, there's still a lot of ambiguity in some respects about what the expectation is, and that does make it difficult for multinationals to comply. We also received a complaint relating to the deployment of analytics cookies on one of our websites that without appropriate consent having been collected. The individual essentially asked for a sum of money, claimed that they had been distressed by this experience and asked for a sum of money. I think it was something like £750. Right from the off, you can tell this is a very standard template, plug in screenshots, plug in amounts, and of course, they were incredibly distressed by this experience. And I think, when we first received one of these letters, it was really interesting because there was a contingent internally that sort of felt, the effort it's going to take to go back and forth with this person, let's just pay the money and let it be. But, having, I think, reflected and discussed the risks there, I think there are three key kind of practical tips I would provide in dealing with these individuals. First, always ask for evidence that they have in fact access to your site and that such cookies have been deployed. We've received a few of these, and actually on two of those occasions they weren't able to provide any evidence of that. So that kind of makes it difficult for them to make their claim. Secondly, verify any behaviour. So take a look at your site, discuss this with your website and tech teams. What actually is happening in practice? Are we seeing this deployment and are we not? And then finally, when it comes to this question of distress and whether they might potentially have a claim in a court of law against you, look to Lloyd and Google and some of that was a really important decision from a few years back now, which talks about the importance of kind of demonstrating distress and not necessarily having a recourse to non-material damages if you're unable to demonstrate that. And I think in this context, going to be pretty tricky to demonstrate that in a court of law. So I think take a look at all of these elements before perhaps panicking and paying them off. One, not to set a precedent for yourselves. I mean, who's to say that this person isn't going to come around and find some other fault on another website in the next week or two? And two, to not set a precedent for the rest of us, because these individuals are out there, and we're finding that they're becoming even more, and anecdotally I've heard from others, even more emboldened, I think, by some of the technological solutions available to them now. They can churn out these letters very easily. They can they're using tools to scan websites, to some publicly available tools to scan websites that have been, issued for a different purpose, to actually scan websites and kind of weaponize that against private companies. So do feel emboldened to push back against these individuals. But I think, as I say, and this is broader than just in this space, we will continue to see individuals who know about their rights and feel very strongly about their rights and continue to make these kinds of complaints. So it's not going anywhere, but it's definitely manageable.